Curtis got done performing his max test, and this is his data. So depending on the machine that you use to collect the data from your client, it'll be a little bit different, but there will be certain things that the machine will give you in a readout. So this is what we're going to look at. If you start from left to right, we'll start with we have the time, obviously the time that he's been working out. So I took a snippet from his test starting at 11 minutes. That's when he started to kind of push himself pretty hard. The things that I want to focus on are going to be this column here. Okay, this is his VO2. This is the number that we're actually looking at. In addition to that, I want to look at ventilation, and we're going to look at RER, which I'll talk about in a second, and then heart rate. All these other numbers, yes, they're important, but these are the primary numbers that we're looking at. So if we start with VO2, we want to say, okay, what was Curtis's max? Well, we just simply, we can go down the list and we say, what was the highest VO2 that he achieved? And it's right there, which is 42.2 milliliters of oxygen per kilogram of body weight per minute. So that is his VO2 max. On the bottom here, this machine already takes that out and it gives it to you. The number's a little bit different because this takes an average, but it's pretty much the same. So first thing is he got, that was his, what he achieved. Now, the second thing that you want to know is, did he actually get max or did he just get peak? There's a difference. VO2 peak means just the highest value that your client got in an assessment. It doesn't mean that it's really their max. We have some objective measures that we look at to really determine, okay, did he reach max? The primary criterion that we look at to see if they really achieved max is to see if they have a plateau of oxygen with an increase of a work rate. Now, it's hard on the test that we did is called a ramp style protocol, meaning that we increased his intensity every minute. With that kind of protocol, it's really hard to see if he plateaued. So we're not going to really look at that right now. We have secondary criteria. There's 4 of them that we can look at. The first thing that is not on here, but we did collect it, was Curtis's RPE, the rating of perceived exertion. Okay, so the first thing that we looked at, or that we can look at, I'm going to draw a little list here, is RPE. Okay, if he has an RPE above 17, and now that's on a 20 scale, a 6 to 20, that's saying that he's working really hard, probably at his max. Now, it wasn't recorded here, but I did measure RPE. I don't know if you guys remember me holding that sign up in front of him, and he got up to 18. So we're going to put a check next to RPE saying, hey, he reached max based on that criteria. The second criteria that we can look at was his heart rate within plus or minus 10 beats per minute of max. Okay, well, let's look. Curtis, his age, I'll have to do some math. Curtis, I'm trying to remember, he's my friend. I think he's 35. So we're going to go 220 minus 35 is 185. That's his max. If we look over here at beats per minute, he got up to 179. And yeah, that's within 10 beats. Okay, he didn't reach a completely 185, but it's within 10 beats. So we'll say, yeah, he was working pretty darn hard. Okay, the third thing that we look at is the respiratory exchange ratio. This is signifying what is Curtis burning for energy. At rest, you burn pretty much mostly fats. At peak exercise, you're burning almost 100% carbohydrate. That's what this column signifies. 0.77, so 0.70 is as low as you can go. That's 100% fat. 0.77 is pretty low. The majority of energy that he's expending is from fat. We see 11 minutes in, he's not working very hard, he's burning mostly fat. As you notice, time increases. This respiratory exchange ratio increases dramatically until you get above 1.0. 1.0 means that you're burning 100% carbohydrate. So then the question is, well, how the heck is he burning more than 100% carbohydrate? Well, when we look at this as a criteria method, an RER above 1.1 is signifying that he's working very hard. We see he got way well above that. The reason that your RER can get above 1.1 is because when you're working very hard, you're starting to produce a lot of lactic acid. Our body's mechanism to try to fight against that is to buffer that off. So you're going to increase more sodium bicarbonate to buffer that, which causes more CO2 to be expired. Well, that messes that ratio up. Remember, the RER is the ratio of oxygen to CO2. And so it artificially gets very high. So once your number gets that high, it's not that you're burning more than 100% carb. It's just telling us, hey, this person's working really hard. So Curtis was working very hard, so we can put a check on that. On the fourth criteria to determine if he actually reached max or not is lactic acid. Lactic acid. Now, we didn't measure that. You probably, in your guys' careers, will never measure this just because it's very expensive. All it is a finger prick, but it's just to calibrate the machine and that kind of thing. You don't measure it. If you had a lactic acid at rest is about 1 millimole. So if you get a lactic acid that is above 8 millimoles, then that's signifying, again, working very hard. That's another secondary criteria that he reached max. So we didn't get that. But based on the secondary criteria, if you got 2 of the 4, then we can say Curtis was working very hard. We say that he reached max. So we see he got 3 of the 4. So we can say, yes, that's a true VO2 max for Curtis. So that's the first thing that we'll look at. The second thing that this can give us is if Curtis is an athlete and if he wants to do some sort of aerobic training for a marathon, triathlon, something like that, we can look and see where his ventilation threshold is. If you look here at this column, this is his ventilation. We see ventilation increases linearly with intensity. That's normal. What we want to look for is where does that linear increase become what we call curvilinear, where it spikes up. Okay, most machines will have graphs, and this one does, that you can watch, and you can see where the spike of ventilation occurs. But you can almost tell if we look down at ventilation here. I looked at it before, now I'm going to have to find it. It's increasing 32, 39, 44. It's increasing about 4, maybe 5 liters per minute. And somewhere here you have a spike between 59 and 73. So now you've got a 12 liter per minute increase in ventilation. Around there is probably Curtis's ventilatory threshold. So the way you can use this as a training tool is say what heart rate elicited that spike. Well, his heart rate is about 158. About 158 beats per minute. So if Curtis trained at about 150 beats per minute, that is the quote unquote like sweet spot. He would be able to train at that intensity without the ventilatory threshold correlates very strongly with the lactate threshold. So he'd be able to train at that spot without getting to the point to where he's building up a lot of lactate and to where he'd have to stop because of fatigue and that kind of thing. So that's the maximum amount or the peak intensity that he could train out for long periods of time. Now that will change as he increases his fitness level. That will go up. All right, so those are the main things that we can get from a VO2 max assessment. In relation to somebody's health, there's different things that you could get from this, in relation to someone's like fitness level and training status. If you're doing a max assessment for health, then we would want to just look more at signs and symptoms. Did he experience any chest pain? Well, no, he didn't. Did he experience any other things that would be abnormal for someone to experience during exercise?